Right now, while you are lying here, the ground beneath you is keeping secrets. Not metaphorically, literally. In the soil beneath every city, beneath every field, beneath every forest floor and ocean bed and desert dune on the surface of this planet, things are buried. Things that were placed there deliberately, or dropped by accident, or swallowed by time, or hidden by people who intended to come back and never did. Golden ships, crystal skulls, ancient libraries sealed in clay, the skeletons of creatures that should not exist, rooms full of treasure that entire armies have spent their lives looking for. The Earth is the greatest archive that has ever existed. It does not discriminate. It accepts everything, the magnificent and the mundane, the sacred and the accidental, the things meant to last forever and the things that were simply left behind. And it keeps them. In the dark, in the cold, in the patient, unhurried silence of buried things. Tonight we go looking. Fact 1. Every year, somewhere between 400,000 and 1 million new archaeological sites are discovered around the world. Not excavated, not understood, simply identified, a new shape in the soil, a new shadow in an aerial photograph, a new anomaly in a ground-penetrating radar survey that says, something is here, something was here, something is waiting. At the current rate of excavation, archaeologists estimate it would take approximately 1,000 years to properly investigate all the known sites that have already been identified. That number grows every year. The Earth is not running out of things to tell us. It is simply waiting for us to ask the right questions. Fact 2. The oldest deliberately buried objects yet discovered were placed in the ground approximately 350,000 years ago. Not by modern humans. Homo sapiens had not yet evolved. By Homo heidelbergensis, an ancestral human species, at a site called Atapuerca in northern Spain. In a pit known as the Cima de los Huesos, the Pit of Bones, archaeologists found the skeletal remains of at least 28 individuals, along with a single stone hand axe made of red quartzite, placed among the bodies. The axe is called Excalibur, not because it is magical, but because someone 350,000 years ago chose a red stone from a distant source, shaped it into a specific form, and placed it in the ground with the dead. That is not accident. That is intention. That is the very earliest evidence we have of a deliberate burial offering. The very first buried object in the human story is a red stone placed with care in a pit with the dead, by something that was not quite us yet, but was getting there. Fact 3. The soil beneath the city of Rome is one of the most densely layered archaeological deposits in the world. Walk anywhere in Rome and the ground beneath you may contain, in successive layers, the debris of Republican Rome, Imperial Rome, the early Christian period, the medieval period, the Renaissance, and every period since. Every construction project in Rome requires archaeologists on standby. Every time a new metro line is dug, a new underground car park proposed, a new building's foundation drilled, the work stops and the archaeologists begin. In 2018, construction workers laying new water pipes beneath the Piazza Vittorio Emanuele II struck a Roman-era mosaic. Beneath the mosaic, a floor. Beneath the floor, walls. Beneath the walls, an entire aristocratic Roman residence, intact in its basic structure, from the 1st century BC. Under a busy Roman piazza. Under the water pipes. Under everything. Just there. Fact 4. Deliberate burial of objects was not always about death. The ancient practice of foundation deposits, burying objects beneath the foundations of new buildings, appears in cultures on every inhabited continent, stretching back thousands of years. In ancient Mesopotamia, clay cylinders inscribed with the names of kings were buried beneath temple foundations, asserting royal ownership of the sacred ground. In ancient Egypt, foundation deposits were placed in pits at the corners and axes of temples. small ceramic vessels, model tools, food offerings, sometimes small plaques of gold or faience, laid in the ground before the building rose above it. In medieval Europe, the bones of animals, and occasionally people, have been found sealed within the walls and floors of churches and manor houses. The building was not merely constructed on the ground. It was given to the ground, an offering made before the first stone was laid, a conversation between the builders and whatever they believed lived in the earth beneath them. Right now, beneath every building you have ever been inside, something may be buried, placed there before the first stone, before the first brick, a conversation with the ground, that the ground is still holding, in the dark, under the floor. Fact 5. The Terracotta Army of the first Emperor of China is the most famous buried army in the world. But most people do not know what it was protecting. The 8,000 ceramic soldiers, the bronze chariots, the terracotta horses, all of them buried in 3 vast pits surrounding the central mound of the emperor's tomb, were the outer perimeter, the guardian force, the outer rim of a burial complex so enormous that it has been surveyed but not fully excavated. The central tomb mound, the burial chamber of Qin Shi Huang, the first emperor, has never been opened. Ancient Chinese records describe what is inside it. Rivers of mercury, flowing in channels carved to represent the rivers of China. A map of the heavens on the ceiling, with pearls as stars. Mechanical crossbows set to fire automatically at anyone who enters. Soil samples from around the mound show anomalously high concentrations of mercury. The rivers of mercury may be real. The tomb has not been opened, partly from reverence, partly because the technology to excavate it without destroying what is inside does not yet exist. The greatest buried treasure in China is sitting there, under a hill, still sealed. Fact 6. The city of Pompeii is famous for being buried. But Pompeii is not the only city preserved by the eruption of Vesuvius in 79 AD. Herculaneum, a smaller, wealthier city on the other side of the volcano, was also buried. Not by ash and pumice, as Pompeii was, but by pyroclastic flows that carbonised everything organic in an instant and sealed the city under 20 meters of hardened volcanic material. This created different conditions of preservation. At Herculaneum, because the carbonization happened so rapidly and so completely, organic materials survive that never survive at Pompeii. Wooden furniture, wooden shelves, still holding their contents. The roof of a shrine, still intact. A complete library. The Villa of the Papyri, a large Roman villa outside Herculaneum, was found in the 18th century to contain over 1,800 carbonised papyrus scrolls. Scrolls that could not be unrolled, that would crumble to dust if touched. For 200 years, the villa's library sat in collections, essentially inaccessible. Then, multispectral imaging and artificial intelligence changed everything. In 2023 and 2024, researchers using machine learning to read the internal structure of the scrolls without unrolling them began to successfully extract text. Ancient works of philosophy, poetry, and scholarship, buried under 20 meters of volcanic rock for nearly 2,000 years, are being read again, for the first time since the mountain erupted. Fact 7. Not all buried treasure is ancient. In 2009, a metal detectorist named Terry Herbert was scanning a newly plowed field in Staffordshire, England, when his detector began signaling almost continuously. Over 5 days, Herbert and the field's owner, Fred Johnson, recovered approximately 244 objects from the soil. They called in the archaeologists. Full excavation recovered over 3,500 individual pieces of gold and silver, the largest hoard of Anglo-Saxon gold ever found. Gold fittings from swords and helmets, Christian crosses, an inscription from the Bible in Latin, objects from the 7th century AD, the age of the Anglo-Saxon kingdoms, buried in a field in Staffordshire. Why they were buried, whether they represented a military treasury, a ritual deposit, loot from a battle, or something else entirely, has never been established. Who buried them never came back. The gold lay in the dark in the plowed field for 1,300 years, until a man with a metal detector walked slowly across it, on a summer day in 2009. Fact 8. The ground remembers things that no written record preserved. In the peat bogs of northern Europe, the dark, acidic, oxygen-poor wetlands of Ireland, Denmark, the Netherlands, and Britain, hundreds of human bodies have been found, preserved with extraordinary completeness. The tannins in the peat water prevent bacterial decomposition. The acidic conditions dissolve the bones while preserving the soft tissue. The result: skin, hair, fingernails, stomach contents. The last meal, partially digested, still identifiable. The most famous Tolland man, found in Denmark in 1950, still had the rope around his neck, still wore his cap. His face, after 2,000 years in the peat, wore an expression so peaceful, eyes lightly closed, lips slightly parted, that the workers who found him called the police, believing they had found a recent murder victim. He was from the 4th century BC. His last meal had been a gruel of millet and barley, and he had been placed in the bog with care, laid on his side in the fetal position as if sleeping. The bog preserved him as the bog preserves everything it takes, completely, without sentimentality, for as long as it takes. Tolland man, sleeping in the peat. The Emperor's Mercury rivers, still flowing under the hill. The scrolls of Herculaneum, being read for the first time in 2,000 years. The Staffordshire gold, in a field for 1,300 years. And somewhere beneath you right now, the ground is keeping something. Maybe nothing dramatic. Maybe a Victorian penny. Maybe a Roman potsherd. Maybe just the bones of something small that curled up and was held. But something. The earth does not give back everything it takes. It keeps, with care, in the dark, the way the night keeps you, right now, held, completely. Sleep. The things people buried were not random. They were chosen. Every deliberate burial, every object placed in the ground with intention, represents a decision. A choice about what mattered enough to protect, what was important enough to hide, what was sacred enough to give to the earth. And the choices tell us something extraordinary about the people who made them. Not the kings and the warriors and the official record, the versions of people that history was designed to preserve, but the actual, private, urgent priorities of human beings facing loss or danger or death, deciding in the last moment what to take with them, what to protect, what to keep, what to bury. Fact 9. The Dead Sea Scrolls were buried in caves. Not accidentally, they were placed there deliberately, wrapped in linen, sealed in clay jars, hidden in the limestone cliffs above the Dead Sea in what is now Israel sometime around 70 AD, when the Roman army was advancing on Jerusalem and everything that could be saved needed to be saved immediately. The community that hid them, almost certainly the Essenes, a Jewish sect living in the desert, took their library into the caves and left it there. They did not come back. The jars sat in the dark of the caves, in the dry desert air, for approximately 1,900 years. The first scrolls were found in 1947 by a Bedouin shepherd boy named Mohammed Dib, who threw a stone into a cave and heard the sound of pottery breaking. He went to look, and found the oldest known manuscripts of the Hebrew Bible, hidden in a jar, in a cave, for 19 centuries, because someone was afraid of the Romans. Fact 10. Clay tablets buried in ancient Mesopotamia have preserved more than religious texts. The city of Nippur, in what is now southern Iraq, was excavated by American archaeologists in the 1880s and 1890s. and among the tens of thousands of clay tablets recovered from the debris of the ancient city were records of extraordinary mundane completeness. Business contracts, receipts, letters between merchants. The accounts of a banking house called the Murashu family, operating in the 5th century BC, with records of their transactions extending across multiple generations. Loans, interest payments, land leases, commodity trades. The Murashu archive is, in effect, the business records of a Babylonian banking family. Still legible, still auditable, still telling the story of money changing hands and debts being called in, across 2,500 years. The earth preserved the paperwork, all of it, without prejudice. Fact 11. The Nag Hammadi library was buried in Egypt around 390 AD. 13 leather-bound codices, books in the modern sense, with pages rather than scrolls, were placed in a sealed ceramic jar and buried near the cliffs of Jabal al-Tarif, in Upper Egypt. They were found in 1945 by 2 farmers digging for fertilizer. The texts inside were Gnostic Christian writings, texts that had been declared heretical by the early church, that had been systematically suppressed and destroyed during the consolidation of Orthodox Christianity in the 4th century. Someone had saved them, hidden them, in a jar, in the desert, against the likelihood of never being read again. The texts include the Gospel of Thomas, the Gospel of Philip, and dozens of other early Christian writings that had been entirely unknown, that the world had no idea existed, until 2 farmers found them in the dirt. Words that had been declared too dangerous to read, waited 16 centuries in the ground, and came back. The Dead Sea Scrolls in their jars. The Murashu family's business records on their tablets. The Gnostic Gospels, leather-bound, in the desert. People burying the things they could not afford to lose, putting them in the ground, trusting the earth. The earth held them, as the earth holds everything, without judgment, without preference, for as long as necessary. Fact 12. The golden boats of Tutankhamun are not the famous solar bark buried outside the Great Pyramid. They are smaller, more intimate, for miniature boats made of gold, found in the antechamber of Tutankhamun's tomb in 1922, tiny vessels, beautifully made, placed there so that the young king would have what he needed for the journey through the afterlife's waterways. But the most extraordinary boat burial in Egyptian history is from a much earlier period. In the 1990s, archaeologists excavating at Abydos found 14 wooden boats buried in the desert sand, 3 kilometers from the nearest water. They dated to approximately 3000 BC, the time of the First Dynasty. Each boat was between 18 and 29 meters long, buried in pits, in the desert, miles from the river. Ships buried in sand so that the dead could sail on water that existed only in the afterlife. The conviction that you would need boats where you were going, expressed in wood and buried in sand, for 5,000 years. Fact 13. The Sutton Hoo ship burial is the most spectacular archaeological find ever made in England. In 1939, a landowner named Edith Pretty, acting on a hunch, asked an archaeologist named Basil Brown to excavate a series of mounds on her property near Woodbridge in Suffolk. The largest mound contained the impression of a ship. The wood had rotted away, but the iron rivets remained in their exact positions, tracing the ghost of a 27-meter Anglo-Saxon warship in the soil. Inside the ship's impression, a burial chamber. Inside the chamber, the most magnificent collection of Anglo-Saxon objects ever found. A gold and garnet helmet, a ceremonial shield, a sword with a pattern-welded blade, gold clasps, silver bowls, a purse containing 37 gold coins, and no body. No trace of a body was ever found. The most lavish burial in early medieval England was an empty grave. Whether the person was buried elsewhere, and this was a cenotaph. whether the acidic soil dissolved the body completely, whether the chamber was robbed in antiquity and the body taken along with other items, is not known. The ship is still there. The grave is still empty. Fact 14. The Hoxton hoard is the largest collection of late Roman gold and silver ever found in Britain. It was discovered in 1992 in a field in Suffolk, the same county as Sutton, by a farmer named Peter Watling, who had lost a hammer in the field and asked his neighbor Eric Laws, who owned a metal detector, to help him find it. Laws found the hammer. He also found approximately 15,000 Roman coins, nearly 100 gold and silver items, and various other objects, all contained in a wooden chest that had long since rotted away, leaving the objects clustered together in the soil. The collection dates to approximately 407 AD, the period when the Roman legions were withdrawing from Britain, when the entire fabric of Roman civilization in the province was coming apart. Someone buried their wealth, intending to come back. The chaos of the period did not permit a return. The chest sat in the Suffolk soil for 1,600 years. Found because a farmer lost a hammer. Fact 15. The phenomenon of deliberate burial hoards is found in virtually every culture in every period of history. And the reasons for burial are almost always the same. War, the threat of invasion, political instability, the rapid approach of danger. But there is another category of hoard, less famous, less dramatic, but in many ways more poignant. The hoard buried by someone who was about to travel. The medieval merchant burying his savings before a long sea voyage. The soldier burying his pay before a campaign. The farmer burying the family silver before a journey of uncertain outcome. Not hidden from enemies, hidden from the earth itself, in a sense entrusted to it for safekeeping. And then, life intervening, the return not happening, the location forgotten, the children not told, the soil quietly incorporating what was left in its care, without fuss, without any particular sense of drama. Just a thing is here. It will be here when you come back, and if you don't, it will be here anyway. Fact 16. The largest hoard of ancient coins ever found in Britain was discovered not by a professional archaeologist or a hobbyist treasure hunter, but by a man doing construction work. In 1854, workers laying the foundations of a new building in Bristol struck a large pot. Inside, over 250,000 silver pennies from the reign of King Stephen and the Empress Matilda. The period of English history known as the Anarchy, when civil war between the two claimants to the throne made England one of the most dangerous places in the medieval world. 250,000 silver coins, buried during a civil war, in Bristol, in the 12th century, found in a building foundation in the 19th. No individual deposit of coins found since has come close to matching it. The people who buried them almost certainly needed them desperately, almost certainly intended to come back, almost certainly did not. The money sat in the earth through the end of the Civil War, through the Plantagenet dynasty, through the Wars of the Roses, through the Tudors, through the Stuarts, through the Restoration, through the Georgian period, until someone started digging. Fact 17. Beneath the Vatican, beneath St. Peter's Basilica, beneath the central church of the Catholic world, is a necropolis, an ancient Roman cemetery, in continuous use from before the construction of the first basilica in the 4th century AD, preserved under the successive layers of the church that was built above and around and repeatedly rebuilt on top of it. In the 1940s, Pope Pius XII authorized excavations beneath the basilica floor. The archaeologists found the necropolis, tombs, mausoleums, inscriptions, the bones of ordinary Romans from the 1st and 2nd centuries AD. And in one specific location, the spot that centuries of tradition had identified as the burial site of St. Peter himself, they found a wall. On the wall, graffiti, Ancient graffiti, scratched by early Christians visiting what they believed was the saint's tomb. And behind the wall, in a niche, human bones. The bones were removed, examined, replaced, and are now held in a reliquary accessible from the basilica. Whether they are the bones of St. Peter is not scientifically provable. Whether they are Roman 1st century male, yes. Whether they are his is a matter of faith. The ground under the most visited church in Christendom keeps its own council. There is a particular kind of buried object that is different from all the others. Not buried out of fear, not buried as an offering to the gods, or as a gift to the dead, or by accident, or by forgetfulness, or by the patient accumulation of time. Buried as a message. Buried because someone wanted to speak to the future, because someone looked forward across the years and thought, whoever you are in the time beyond mine, I want you to know that we were here, that we thought about you, that we held this moment in our hands and understood, however imperfectly, that it would pass, and that you would come after. Time capsules are one of the most human things we do. Not a practical behavior. Not a behavior driven by survival or economics or politics. A behavior driven by the desire to connect across the dark of time, person to person. Fact 18. The oldest known intentional time capsule was placed in 1777. Samuel Adams and Paul Revere, both prominent figures in the American Revolution, placed a copper box beneath the cornerstone of the Massachusetts State House in Boston. It contained newspapers, coins, and a silver plate. The box was opened in 1855, found to be water-damaged and partially decayed, repacked and reburied. It was opened again in 2014, when a hairline crack appeared in the cornerstone. Inside the repacked box, the 1855 newspapers, some coins, and still legible, still intact, the silver plate from 1777. A plate placed by Paul Revere, touching the hands of people in 2014. Connecting a man who had ridden through the Massachusetts night warning of the British advance to people with smartphones across 237 years. Fact 19. The Crypt of Civilization at Oglethorpe University in Atlanta, Georgia, was sealed in 1940 and is not scheduled to be opened until 8113 AD. The calculation behind that date, 1936, when planning began, was approximately the same number of years from the earliest Egyptian hieroglyphics as 8113 would be from 1936. A span of recorded human history, projected forward. Inside the crypt, a newsreel of Adolf Hitler, a set of Lincoln logs, Donald Duck cartoons, a recording of Arturo Toscanini, a set of encyclopedias, a machine designed to teach the English language to whoever opens the vault and can't read it. Also inside, a stainless steel container of beer, because someone felt strongly about this. The crypt is made of porcelain-lined concrete, flood-proofed, its stainless steel door welded shut. It will not be opened if everything goes as planned, for another 6,000 years. Whether anyone will be around to open it in 8113 AD, whether they will want to, whether the Lincoln logs will mean anything to them, is not something anyone living today will ever know. The crypt is patient. The beer is waiting. Fact 20. In 1939, the Westinghouse Corporation buried a torpedo-shaped metal capsule 7 feet underground at the site of the 1939 World's Fair in Flushing Meadows, New York. It was designed to be opened in 6939 AD. Inside, a copy of Life magazine, newsreel film, microfilm of the contents of a small library, a Bible, $1's worth of coins, and seeds, 72 seeds, selected to represent the major food crops of the world in 1939. The seeds are almost certainly no longer viable after this length of time in the ground. But the choice to include them, the instinct to send food forward to try to feed the future, is something. A second Westinghouse time capsule was buried at the same location in 1965. Both are still there, under a park in Queens, under the grass where children play, under the ordinary surface of the world, still waiting for 6,939 AD. 7 feet underground, in a park in Queens. Seeds that may or may not germinate. $1's worth of coins. A Bible. Someone's careful selection of what mattered most. What mattered most in 1939. Buried for the people of 6,939. Who may find it, or may not. Either way, it is there, as things always are, in the ground, waiting. Fact 21. The things hidden beneath famous buildings are not always time capsules. Sometimes they are considerably older than the buildings above them. The Basilica of San Clemente in Rome is one of the most remarkable examples of underground archaeology in the world. The current basilica was built in the 12th century, above a 4th century basilica, above a 2nd century Roman house, above a 1st century Roman house that was converted into a Mithraic temple. 4 layers. 4 distinct periods of human use. One above the other. You can descend through all of them, walking down staircases, passing through successively older air, until you are standing in a 1st century Roman room, hearing the sound of an underground stream that has been flowing since before the basilica above was built. The stream is still running, through the lowest level of the excavations, carrying water through walls that were old when the Roman Empire was young. Fact 22. Beneath the streets of Edinburgh, Scotland, is an entire hidden city. Not metaphorically, not in the sense of old foundations and forgotten cellars. An actual, explorable, habitable set of streets and buildings, sealed off and built over in the 18th century and not fully open to the public until 2003. Mary King's Close is a series of underground lanes, alleyways between medieval tenement buildings that were sealed when a new civic building was constructed on top of them in the 1750s. The buildings were not demolished. Their lower floors were simply incorporated as the foundations of the new structure, the upper floors removed, and the roof of the new building laid over the truncated medieval buildings. For 2.5 centuries, the spaces below existed in complete darkness. When they were finally opened, they were found to be largely intact. Rooms with walls still bearing their original plaster. A fireplace, with ashes still in it. The faint residue of lives lived in a city that the city built over. Still there, in the dark under the Royal Mile. Fact 23. The Parisian catacombs are the most famous underground burial site in the world. But they were not originally built as a burial site. They were limestone quarries, the vast underground network of tunnels and chambers from which the stone used to build much of Paris was extracted, beginning in the 13th century. By the 18th century, the quarrying had left so much of the city's substructure hollow that buildings were beginning to collapse into the voids below. The decision to use the abandoned quarries as a solution to Paris's overflowing cemeteries was made in 1786. Over the following decades, the bones of approximately 6 million people, exhumed from the city's cemeteries, were transferred to the catacombs. The bones were arranged with considerable care. Femur bones stacked with femur bones. Skulls arranged in patterns. The walls of the ossuary corridors faced with the bones in decorative configurations, with inscriptions carved into the stone above. 6 million people, arranged in the dark, under the city, in the quarries that had built the city above them. Fact 24. The buried cities of Troy are perhaps the most famous example of history layering itself underground. Heinrich Schliemann, the German businessman turned archaeologist who excavated Hisarlik in western Turkey in the 1870s, was convinced he had found the Troy of Homer, the city of the Trojan War. He was right that Troy was there. He dug right through it. Schliemann found gold, extraordinary gold, which he called the treasure of Priam, and smuggled out of the country. At a level he identified as Homeric Troy. The treasure was real. The identification was wrong. The gold he found dated to approximately 2400 BC. The Trojan War, if it occurred, would have been approximately 1200 BC. He had dug through the actual Trojan War level. Troy Vie, in his enthusiasm to reach the deeper, more spectacular layers beneath. The treasure he wanted was already behind him. Above him, in the spoil heap he had excavated through and discarded. Archaeology in the wrong hands can destroy the very thing it seeks. Fact 25. The world's most valuable buried treasure, by credible valuation, may be the Padmanabhaswamy temple treasure in Kerala, India. In 2011, the Supreme Court of India ordered an audit of the vaults beneath the Sri Padmanabhaswamy temple in Tiruvananthapuram. Vaults that had been sealed for over a century. 5 vaults were opened. Inside, gold coins, gold statues, diamond necklaces, ruby-encrusted objects, ancient jewelry, precious stones, and gold objects whose sheer quantity was staggering. The estimated total value, over $1 trillion. The largest collection of treasure ever found in the world. In a temple vault. In Kerala, a 6th vault, Vault B, was ordered opened, then reopened due to legal disputes. As of the time of this writing, Vault B has not been opened. Whether it contains more than the 5 vaults already opened, whether there is more beneath Vault B, is not known. The most valuable known buried treasure in the world is still partly sealed. Fact 26. The buried objects that archaeologists most want to find are often the most ordinary. Not the gold, not the treasure, not the crowns and the jewels and the ceremonial objects that make the front pages. The rubbish. A midden, an ancient rubbish heap, is one of the most valuable archaeological sites it is possible to find. Because rubbish is what people actually used. Rubbish is what broke, what was discarded, what was daily and mundane and therefore representative. The kitchen refuse of an ancient settlement tells you what they ate. The discarded pottery tells you what they owned. The ash and the burnt seeds and the animal bones tell you about the fire, the food, the season. The most famous archaeological rubbish heap in the world is Oxyrhynchus, a site in the Egyptian desert where the dry conditions have preserved, in the ancient garbage dumps, millions of fragments of papyrus, including literary texts, letters, tax records, and fragments of works entirely unknown from any other source. The buried rubbish of Roman Egypt has given us lost plays, lost poems, lost histories. The earth did not know it was keeping a library. It was just keeping rubbish. And the rubbish turned out to be irreplaceable. The rubbish that became a library. The sealed vault that may contain $1 trillion more. Troy in the spoil heap, already excavated past. Edinburgh, sealed under the Royal Mile. Paris, arranged in its limestone quarries. And the time capsule seeds in Queens, waiting for 6939. The earth keeps everything. The grand and the mundane. The lost and the found. The ordinary discarded things that turned out to matter. You are not required to decide tonight what matters. The earth will sort it, as it always does. The earth does not only preserve things in the dark and the dry, it also preserves them in the cold. The permafrost, the permanently frozen ground that underlies vast areas of Siberia, Alaska, Canada, and the Arctic regions, is a different kind of archive from the desert or the peat bog. Not acidic, not dry, just cold, just frozen. Just the steady, continuous cold of ground that has not thawed in thousands of years. And in that cold, things are preserved in ways that nothing else can match. Not just objects, not just pottery and bone and metal, flesh, hair. The last meal still in the stomach. The expression on the face. The permafrost is the most complete preservation medium on Earth. And as the climate changes and the permafrost begins, in some places, to thaw, the archive is opening. Whether we are ready for what is inside is a different question. Fact 27. The woolly mammoth has been extinct for approximately 4,000 years. In most of its former range. In one small island population, they survived until approximately 1650 BC, outlasting the construction of the Great Pyramid by nearly 1,000 years. And they are being found continuously, emerging from the Siberian permafrost as it thaws. Not skeletons, not just bones. Complete individuals. Skin, hair, muscle tissue, internal organs. Mammoths so well preserved that their blood has been recovered in liquid form from ruptured blood vessels. Their stomach contents analyzed. Their final meals identified. Buttercups, grass, sedge. A baby mammoth found in 2007, named Luba, had her eyes, her trunk, her skin intact, her intestines undamaged. She was 42,000 years old. She looked as if she had died the previous week. The permafrost had her perfectly for 42,000 years. Fact 28. The Otzi the Iceman is the most studied human being in history. He was found in September 1991, emerging from a melting glacier on the border between Austria and Italy, by two hikers who initially assumed he was a recent accident victim. He was 5,300 years old. He is the oldest naturally preserved human body ever recovered. And the level of detail preserved is extraordinary. His clothing, a coat of woven grass, leggings of goat leather, a bearskin cap. His equipment, a copper axe, a bow and arrows, a fire-starting kit. His last meal, ibex meat, red deer, einkorn wheat, identified from his stomach contents. His medical history: arthritis in his joints, a healed rib fracture, evidence of Lyme disease, evidence of several other conditions. The parasites in his intestines. The pollen on his clothing, identifying the precise route he had walked in the days before his death. And the arrow in his shoulder, whose stone tip was found lodged in his back. He did not die by accident. He was murdered by a stone-tipped arrow shot from behind on a mountain in the Copper Age. The case is 5,300 years old. It is technically still open. Fact 29. The Yukon permafrost has given back a creature that most people had never heard of. In 2016, miners working in a placer gold mine in the Klondike region of the Yukon struck something unexpected. A mummified wolf pup, 57,000 years old. Her teeth still white. Her paws still padded. Her fur still gray-brown and complete, if matted and compressed by millennia of frozen ground. She has been named Zur, the word for wolf in the language of the local Adirondack Wet'suwet'en First Nation. She is the most complete wolf ever found. Her stomach contents have been analyzed. She ate fish, probably salmon, and her genome has been sequenced. She is more than twice as old as the mammoths found nearby. She had been in the permafrost since before the last ice age began in earnest. Just in the ground, under the gold. Zur in the gold mine. Luba in the Siberian tundra. Otzi in his glacier. The cold that kept them. Without asking. Without requiring anything of them. Just cold. And time. And the patience of the frozen ground. Which is a very particular kind of patience. The kind that does not know it is being patient. The kind that simply is. Be that tonight. Simply cold. Simply still. Simply here. Fact 30. The Antikythera mechanism, the extraordinary geared astronomical calculator from approximately 100 BC, was found underwater, in a shipwreck off the Greek island of Antikythera. Not buried in soil, but preserved by burial under the sea, under sediment, under the dark and cold and pressure of Mediterranean seawater, in much the same way as objects buried in ground. The wreck was discovered in 1900 by sponge divers. They found bronze statues, marble statues, glassware, amphorae, and in a fragment of corroded bronze that was initially ignored because it seemed to be just another lump of encrusted metal. The mechanism. It was not recognized for what it was until the fragments were cleaned, and the internal structure of gears became visible. The most sophisticated mechanical device from the ancient world. Found on the seafloor, in pieces, by sponge divers, 60 years before anyone understood what it was. The sea had been keeping it for 2,000 years, with no particular interest in its importance. Fact 31. Underwater archaeology has transformed our understanding of ancient trade. The ancient Mediterranean seafloor is littered with shipwrecks, thousands of them, from every period of antiquity, still holding their cargo. A Bronze Age shipwreck found off the coast of Turkey at Uluburun, dating to approximately 1300 BC, contained one of the most diverse cargo assemblages ever found. Copper ingots, tin ingots, ebony logs from sub-Saharan Africa, ivory from elephants and hippopotamuses, glass ingots from Egypt, faience from Egypt, amber from the Baltic, ostrich eggs from North Africa, pomegranates, almonds, a gold cup, a gold scarab bearing the name of Nefertiti, a single ship, from 1300 BC, carrying goods from Africa, Egypt, the Levant, the Baltic, the Bronze Age Mediterranean trade network, preserved on the seafloor, in its last cargo. Fact 32. The Black Sea is unlike any other body of water on Earth in terms of its archaeological potential. Below approximately 150 meters, the Black Sea is entirely anoxic, completely devoid of oxygen. This means no wood-boring organisms, no bacteria that require oxygen to operate, no decay of organic material. Ships that sank below the anoxic layer have been found with their masts still standing, their ropes still rigged, their cargo still stacked. A Byzantine merchant ship discovered in 2018 at a depth of over 2,000 meters had its rudder intact, its cargo amphoras still stacked in rows, its carved wooden decorations still legible. The ship was 1,200 years old. It looked like it had sunk last week. The Black Sea is a graveyard for ships that the graveyard refused to decay. Thousands of them. At depth, in the dark, in the oxygen-free silence. Fact 33. The most significant buried secret in North America may be under a field in rural Virginia. Werowocomoco was the capital of the Powhatan Confederacy, the most powerful Native American political entity on the eastern seaboard at the time of European contact. It was the seat of the paramount chief Wahansanaka, known to the English as Powhatan, and the place where his daughter Pocahontas grew up. The site was identified archaeologically only in 2003. Before that, its location had been unknown for over 300 years. Excavations at the site have found evidence of large-scale ceremonial activity, elite residential structures, and the physical layout of a major political and ceremonial center. Most of Werowocomoco has not been excavated. The capital of one of the most significant Native American civilizations in the history of the eastern United States, exists, largely unexamined, under a field, in Virginia, waiting. Fact 34. The buried treasure that has been underground the longest is not gold or jewels. It is money in the most literal sense. In various locations in Scandinavia, hoards of silver coins have been found dating to the Viking Age, the 9th through 11th centuries AD. These were not treasure in the aristocratic sense. They were personal savings, the accumulated wealth of farmers and traders and raiders, buried for the same reason that people everywhere bury things of value. Because there was no bank. The earth was the bank, and it charged no fees, and it paid no interest, and it kept what was deposited in it reliably and without complaint. For 1,000 years, more than 46,000 Viking Age coins have been found in hoards in Scandinavia. Each one was a person's savings. Each one represents someone who trusted the ground more than they trusted any human institution. And the ground did not let them down. Fact 35. One of the most surprising categories of buried objects is buried music. Not the metaphorical kind, actual, playable musical instruments found in archaeological contexts that can be, and have been, played again. Bronze Age bone flutes, found in Central European burial mounds, have been reconstructed and played. They produce notes. An ancient lyre found in a burial at Sutton Hoo, fragmentary, but its strings and construction recoverable, has been reconstructed and played. It produces an eerie, resonant sound that no living person had heard for 1,000 years. The most extraordinary musical finds are the ancient Chinese bells. Bronze bells, cast in sets of 64, found in the tomb of Marquis E of Zhang in 1978. They date to 433 BC and were still playable when found. Each bell can produce 2 distinct notes depending on where it is struck. A full orchestra of 2,400-year-old bells, found in a sealed tomb, played again for the first time in over 2 millennia. The music that filled the tomb when the Marquis was buried was heard again. Not an echo. The actual notes. The actual bronze. Still vibrating. After 2,500 years. The bells of Marquis E still vibrating. The Byzantine ship, its mast still standing. Otzi's arrow still in his shoulder. Zur in the gold mine still gray. The ground is full of sound, full of color, full of the specific, individual, irreplaceable residue of specific, individual, irreplaceable lives. All of it held, in the cold, in the dark, in the quiet that is not emptiness but fullness. The deepest ground is the fullest. The oldest dark holds the most. And the night around you is the same, deep, full, holding, sleep. Not everything buried underground was buried deliberately. Some things were simply lost, dropped in a field and never found, left in a house that burned, and the ash covered it, and the years covered the ash, fallen into a river and carried to the bottom and buried in silt, thrown away, not as an offering, not as a treasure, just as something broken or unwanted. And the earth took it anyway and kept it anyway with the same indiscriminate care it gives to everything. The ground does not distinguish between the intentional and the accidental. It keeps both. And the accidental losses, the ordinary discards, the things nobody meant to preserve, these are sometimes the most intimate objects archaeology recovers, because they were not curated, not selected, not arranged for posterity, just dropped, and then found, 2,000 years later, still exactly where they fell. Fact 36. The Roman town of Vindolanda, near Hadrian's Wall in northern England, has been producing the most intimate documents from Roman Britain ever recovered. The Vindolanda tablets are thin slices of wood, about the size of a modern postcard, written on an ink, discarded in a rubbish heap, preserved by the waterlogged anaerobic conditions of the soil. They are letters, shopping lists, military reports, a birthday party invitation. That birthday party invitation, sent from one officer's wife to another, inviting her to a birthday celebration, is the oldest known piece of writing by a woman in Latin. It was thrown away, into the rubbish, by someone who had read it, attended the party, and no longer needed it. And it waited in the waterlogged soil of northern England for 1,900 years. to be the oldest surviving letter written by a woman in the Roman world. Fact 37. Beneath the streets of London, the River Walbrook, a small tributary of the Thames that was built over in the medieval period, has preserved an extraordinary range of objects in its silted bed. Among them, approximately 50 Roman skulls, found in the river mud, dating to the 2nd and 3rd centuries AD, with no bodies, just heads. The theories for their presence range from a massacre to the display of executed criminals' heads on London Bridge, whose predecessor crossed the Thames not far away, to a ritual deposit connected to the head cult practices documented in various Celtic traditions of the period. No single explanation has been accepted. 50 skulls in the mud in the riverbed under London, still raising the same question they have raised since they were found, which is, how did you get here? Fact 38. The world's largest collection of Anglo-Saxon objects is not in a museum. It is in the ground. Specifically, it is in the soil of England, in the fields, in the gardens, in the banks of rivers, under the floors of houses, waiting to be found. The Portable Antiquities Scheme, a British program that records objects found by members of the public, has recorded over 1.5 million finds since 1997. 1.5 million. Most of them found by amateur detectorists walking across fields on weekends. The average find is not spectacular, a Roman coin here, a medieval buckle there. But the cumulative picture they build, across hundreds of thousands of individual objects from across the country, is one of the most detailed archaeological datasets ever assembled. The Museum of Anglo-Saxon England is not behind glass. It is distributed across 1 million fields, under 1 million feet of topsoil, being slowly, continuously, one coin at a time, brought to light. The birthday party invitation, in the rubbish. The skulls in the London riverbed. The million finds in the English fields. The things nobody meant to keep, that the ground kept anyway. There is something in that. Something about the ground not caring about intention, about the accidental and the deliberate being treated the same, held with the same care, for the same amount of time, regardless of why they ended up there. The ground does not judge what it receives. Neither does the night. Rest. Fact 39. Gardens are one of the most productive sites for unexpected archaeological finds. The soil of an old garden, particularly in Britain, where gardens have been cultivated on the same land for centuries, contains an extraordinary density of material. The digging, the composting, the constant turning of the soil brings objects upward, while new ones are lost downward. In 2012, a man digging in his garden in Shropshire found a hoard of 500 Roman coins in a clay pot. In 2019, a woman in Norfolk found a complete Roman cosmetic set. Small jars, a spatula, a spoon, the residue of a face cream still preserved in the jars, while turning over soil for planting. The face cream has been analyzed. It contained animal fat, starch, and tin, a whitening ingredient. Someone's beauty routine. 2,000 years old. In a garden in Norfolk. Still in its jar. Fact 40. The things buried beneath the foundations of ships are some of the most overlooked buried objects in history. When a wooden ship was built in the Age of Sail, it was common practice to place coins beneath the mast step, the socket in the keel where the main mast sits. The coins were placed there as an offering for safe passage, as a good luck charm, as a practical means of giving the ship a specific date of construction in the archaeological record. This practice persists in the Royal Navy today. Newly commissioned warships receive coins placed beneath the mast step during construction. When old ships are broken up for salvage, or when ancient wrecks are excavated, these coins emerge. Sometimes Roman coins in a medieval wreck, the ship's carpenter using an old coin he happened to have. Sometimes a specific year's minting, establishing the earliest possible date of construction. A coin under a mast, in the dark of the hold, traveling every sea the ship ever sailed. Fact 41. In 1947, a farmer near the town of Ain Dara in Syria was plowing a field when his plow struck something hard. He had found a buried stone lion. Excavations over the following decades revealed an entire Syro-Hittite temple dating to approximately 1300 BC, with a large courtyard paved with basalt and decorated with enormous carved lions and sphinxes. And in the courtyard, footprints. 2 enormous footprints carved into the stone, each one approximately a meter long, leading from the entrance toward the inner sanctuary, as if a giant had walked through the temple. The scale of the feet has been calculated to correspond to a figure approximately 20 to 30 meters tall. They are, in the scholarly literature, understood as the footprints of the god, the divine presence moving through the sacred space. A god's footsteps, carved in stone, in a temple courtyard, found under a plowed field, in Syria, still there. Fact 42. The Sutton Hoo ship was not the only ship burial in the mounds at Sutton Hoo. There were at least 18 mounds in the burial ground. Most were robbed in antiquity, their treasures taken, their contents scattered. But some were excavated properly in the 1980s and 1990s, and among the finds was a second ship, smaller than the great ship but still significant. And within the ship's burial, the cremated remains of a person, mixed with the burnt residue of objects that had been placed on the funeral pyre. Among those residues, the remains of gaming pieces, a lyre, a comb, a knife, the everyday objects of a life, burnt and buried, in a ship, in a mound, in Suffolk. Not a king, this time, possibly a warrior, possibly a high-ranking member of the retinue, someone whose name is not in any history, but whose gaming pieces ended up in the ground, in a ship, under a mound, still there. Fact 43. Beneath the floor of almost every medieval church in England, people are buried. Not just in the churchyard, inside the building. The practice of burying the wealthy and the important within the church itself, as close as possible to the altar and therefore as close as possible to the sacred, meant that medieval churches accumulated layers of burials beneath their floors over centuries. Some of these burials are marked with ledger stones, flat grave markers set into the floor, worn smooth by centuries of feet walking over them. Many are entirely unmarked, their occupants unknown. When medieval churches are renovated, when floors are lifted, when foundations are shored up, the burials are discovered. The floors of England's medieval churches are populated, densely populated, with people who wanted to be as close to the holy as the holy ground would allow, lying in the dark under the flagstones, in the cold of old stone, quiet. Fact 44. The Florentine floods of 1966 revealed something unexpected beneath the city. On November 4, 1966, the Arno River burst its banks and flooded Florence with 6 meters of water and mud, damaging or destroying countless works of art and irreplaceable manuscripts. The recovery effort was one of the most significant cultural rescue operations in modern history. But as the mud was cleared from the basements of buildings near the river, archaeologists found something the floodwater had exposed. Sections of the ancient Roman city of Florentia, buried beneath the medieval and Renaissance city. Roman roads, Roman building foundations, Roman drainage systems, under Florence, under Botticelli's city, under Dante's city, under the Renaissance, under the flood. The catastrophe revealed what the centuries had hidden. And what the centuries had hidden was, as always, something that had been there all along, under everything, in the dark. The Roman road under Florence, the god's footsteps in the Syrian courtyard, the gaming pieces burnt and buried, the face cream in the Norfolk garden, the skulls in the London River, the birthday invitation in the rubbish, So much of what the ground holds is not what anyone intended. It is simply what was there, what was lived, what was used and broken and lost and discarded and left, and kept, involuntarily, by a ground that does not discriminate. Your day is buried now too, in a sense, in the sediment of the night. Everything that happened, every object touched, every word said, being sorted somewhere in the sleeping mind, the way the earth sorts things, slowly, without judgment, keeping what needs keeping, releasing what is ready to go. Let it sort. Let the night do what the night does. Sleep. We are halfway through. Halfway through 100 buried things, halfway through the night, halfway through the particular kind of drowsy wondering that comes from lying still and letting the mind go where it wants. And the things we are about to consider are different from what has come before. Not ancient, not accidental. These are things buried right now, by us, in our time, for reasons that are not entirely different from the reasons all buried things were buried. For safekeeping for the future, because certain things are too dangerous or too important or too strange to leave above ground. And among these contemporary buried things are some of the most thought-provoking objects in this entire series, because they ask a question that the ancient Egyptians never had to ask, a question that only the modern world has had to confront. What do you bury when what you are burying will outlast not just you, but every institution, every language, every civilization that currently exists? What do you bury? For the people who come after everything. Fact 45. Nuclear waste is the most dangerous buried substance on Earth. High-level radioactive waste, the spent fuel from nuclear reactors and the byproducts of nuclear weapons production, remains lethally radioactive for tens of thousands of years. Some isotopes remain dangerous for hundreds of thousands. 100,000 years from now, the waste buried in deep geological repositories today will still be dangerous to anyone who disturbs it. Homo sapiens has existed for approximately 300,000 years. The nuclear waste being buried today needs to be undisturbed for 1/3 of the entire duration of our species' existence. Fact 46. The problem of nuclear waste warning markers is one of the most extraordinary design challenges in human history. How do you warn someone 10,000 years in the future that what is buried here is deadly? In 10,000 years, no language currently in use will be legible. No symbol system currently in use will be understood. No institution currently in existence will exist. The U.S. Department of Energy commissioned studies in the 1990s to think about this problem for the Waste Isolation Pilot Plant, a deep geological repository in New Mexico. The reports recommended a landscape of menace. Giant earthen berms surrounding the site. Irregular stone spikes rising from the ground at forbidding angles. Warning messages in multiple languages, including pictographs. Rooms filled with inscribed granite slabs explaining, in as many ways as possible, that this place is a message and the message is, danger. Do not dig. Do not disturb. The things buried here are not treasure. One researcher proposed something darker. A nuclear priesthood, a religious or cultural tradition, deliberately cultivated and maintained over generations, whose sole purpose would be to transmit the warning, the way religions have transmitted their messages across millennia, not in writing, in people. Fact 47. Finland is building the world's most permanent man-made structure. Onkalo, the Finnish word means hiding place, is a deep geological repository for high-level nuclear waste currently under construction near the Olkiluoto nuclear power plant on the Finnish coast. It will be drilled into granite bedrock more than 500 meters below the surface. When complete, it will be sealed permanently, with no intention of reopening. The plan is for the granite to hold the waste for 100,000 years. 100,000 years. The granite was chosen because it has been stable for over 1 billion years. The last ice age may come and go before the contents of Onkalo are safe to disturb. A documentary about Onkalo, released in 2010, ends with a question asked of the project's engineers. If you could communicate with the people of the distant future, would you tell them about this place? Or would you stay silent and hope they never find it? One engineer paused for a long time before answering. He said, "I would stay silent." 100,000 years. In the granite, 500 meters down. In Finland. Staying silent. The deepest, most patient burial in human history. Not treasure. Not knowledge. Not a message. Just presence. In the dark. For as long as the dark needs to hold it. Fact 48. Beneath London, over 400 kilometers of tunnels and infrastructure make up one of the most complex buried engineering systems in the world. The oldest sections of the London Underground date to 1863. The Metropolitan Line, the world's first underground railway, originally built as a cut-and-cover trench before the true tube boring technique was developed. But beneath the underground, there are older systems. Victorian sewers, built by Joseph Bazalgette in the 1860s, still carrying London's waste beneath its streets. Some of these sewers are large enough to walk through, and engineers still do, conducting the same inspections that Bazalgette's men conducted 150 years ago. And beneath the sewers, older still, the lost rivers of London. The Fleet, the Walbrook, the Westbourne, the Tyburn, rivers that once flowed through the city, that were progressively culvert and buried as London expanded, that still flow through pipes beneath the modern city. The River Fleet, one of the largest, flows beneath Fleet Street and empties into the Thames below Blackfriars Bridge. You can hear it on quiet nights. A low rumble. Under the pavement. Under the sewers. Under the underground. The buried river still running, as it has for 10,000 years. Fact 49. The city of Mexico City is sinking. It has been sinking since it was built, because it was built on the bed of a drained lake, Lake Texcoco, whose soft clay sediment compresses under the weight of the buildings above. In the last century, parts of Mexico City have sunk by approximately 9 meters. 9 meters. And as the city sinks, the remains of Tenochtitlan, the Aztec capital that Mexico City was built on top of, are shifting, turning, sometimes rising relative to the subsiding streets above them. When workers began construction of the Mexico City Metro in the 1960s, they found Aztec ruins at every turn. The Great Templo Mayor, the central pyramid complex of Tenochtitlan, was found in 1978, when electrical workers were digging and struck a carved stone 8 meters below street level. The stone was the Coyolxauhqui monolith, an enormous circular carved disc depicting the Aztec moon goddess, one of the most important works of pre-Columbian art ever found. Under a street, 8 meters down, found by people laying electrical cables. Fact 50. We are at 50, the halfway point. And it seems right to pause here and notice something about the pattern of all these buried things. Whether they were buried by pharaohs or by scared civilians. Whether they are mammoth bones or nuclear waste. Whether they were hidden for safety or dropped by accident or sealed for a future that does not yet exist. They share something. Every buried thing represents a moment when someone, or some process or some catastrophe or some slow accumulation of time, removed something from the surface world, from the world of light and air and change, and placed it in the world of darkness and stability and preservation. The surface world is volatile. Things burn and rot and are stolen and are broken and are lost to flood and war and the ordinary erosion of use. But underground, in the cold, in the dry, in the anaerobic, in the frozen, things endure. The earth is not merely a place where objects happen to be preserved. It is the world's most reliable keeper. the most consistent, the most patient, the most impartial archive that exists. And it has been keeping things since before there was anyone to bury them. Fact 51. The most recent major archaeological discovery in Egypt was made in 2023. At Saqqara, the ancient necropolis on the west bank of the Nile near Cairo, one of the most excavated sites in Egyptology. Archaeologists led by Zahi Hawass found a burial shaft containing multiple mummies, gold-faced burial masks, canopic jars, and a series of papyri. Saqqara has been excavated continuously since the 19th century. New things are still being found there. A site that has had professional archaeologists working on it for over 150 years is still producing major finds. The earth does not run out of things to give. It simply gives them on its own schedule, when it is ready. Fact 52. Beneath the modern city of Athens, the ancient city of Athens lies at depths varying from a few centimeters to several meters. Every construction project in the city center requires archaeological supervision, and the Athens Metro, built between 1994 and 2000, became, in the process of its construction, one of the most significant archaeological excavations of the 20th century. Over 50,000 artifacts were recovered during the metro's construction. Entire sections of the ancient city, roads, wells, drains, houses, were exposed, documented, and in several cases preserved in place, visible through glass walls in the finished metro stations. Athens metro passengers travel through an archaeological museum every time they ride the train, past walls 2,500 years old, on their way to work. Fact 53. The buried thing that may tell us the most about the future is already in the ground. In multiple locations around the world, scientists have been monitoring what happens to modern materials buried underground. Plastics, synthetic fibers, electronics, to understand how long they persist in the geological record. The answer for some materials is disturbing and remarkable in equal measure. Certain plastics do not biodegrade in any meaningful sense. They break into smaller and smaller pieces, microplastics, nanoplastics, but the polymer chains remain intact. A plastic bag buried in soil today will still be recognizable, at some chemical level, in tens of thousands of years. We are, right now, creating the most persistent human artifact in geological history. Not the pyramids, not the cathedrals. Plastic. The future archaeologist, if there is one, will find in the geological layer corresponding to our time, a clear chemical signature. Not gold. Not bronze, a polymer horizon. Thin, global, unmistakable. The layer that tells whoever comes after, they were here. This is when. This is what they left. The polymer horizon. The metro passengers in Athens passed the ancient walls. Mexico City, sinking over Tenochtitlan. The fleet, still running under Fleet Street. Onkalo, in its Finnish granite, staying silent. The surface world is volatile. The underground world is still. And you, right now, are at the surface, which is also, in its way, a form of being buried. In the night, in the dark that holds you, in the warmth of the kept and the preserved. Everything that needs to be kept tonight is kept. You don't need to hold it. Let the dark hold it. The dark is very good at this. It has been practicing for a very long time. Sleep. Not everything buried underground is in the ground because it went down. Some things were sealed in, built around, enclosed by the structures that rose above them, trapped between floors and inside walls, in the spaces that buildings create when they are constructed and then inhabited and then modified and then renovated and then, sometimes, forgotten. Buildings are not hollow. They contain things. In the cavities between the lath and the plaster, in the chimney breasts, behind the fireplaces, under the floorboards in the void between floor and earth, in the walls where something was placed 100 years ago and the plaster closed over it and the people who placed it moved away or died and the memory of the placing died with them. Houses remember what their inhabitants forget. They keep the evidence in their bodies, in their dark interiors, patiently. Fact 54. Concealment shoes are one of the most widely found categories of hidden objects in British buildings. Old shoes, typically a single shoe, worn and resoled and worn again until it was beyond use, have been found hidden in the walls, floors, chimneys, and roof spaces of houses across Britain, dating from the 15th century through the early 20th. Nobody knows exactly why they were placed there. The most widely accepted theory is that they were apotropaic objects, placed to ward off evil spirits, to prevent witches from entering through the chimney, to bring good luck to the household. A single worn shoe pressed into a gap in the masonry. As protection. More than 1,000 have been recorded in the Northampton Museum's concealment shoe database. 1,000 shoes. In 1,000 walls. In houses across Britain. Each one placed by a specific person at a specific moment for a reason that felt urgent and real to them. The shoes are still there in most cases. Still protecting whatever they were protecting. Still worn smooth by the feet of people who have been dead for centuries. Fact 55. Mummified cats have been found sealed inside the walls of houses across Britain and mainland Europe. Not freshly killed, their mummification was natural, suggesting they died in the walls and were then sealed in, or were placed there already dead, as part of the same protective tradition as the concealment shoes. A mummified cat, dried, stiff, sometimes posed with paws raised as if frozen mid-leap, was considered protection against rats and against evil spirits. Sometimes they were found with mummified rats, placed nearby as if in perpetual pursuit. An eternal cat, frozen in a wall, permanently chasing an eternal rat. Neither one going anywhere. Both of them still there, in the cavity between the joists, in the dark of the old house. Since the 17th century. Fact 56. Written documents have been found hidden in the walls and floors of houses dating to the Reformation. The 16th century religious upheaval in England that made the practice of Catholicism illegal. Families who remained Catholic in secret, recusants, hid their prayer books, their rosaries, their devotional objects, in spaces within the structure of their houses. Some of these objects were retrieved when it became safer to practice openly. Some were never retrieved. They were found centuries later by builders renovating old houses. Catholic prayer books in the walls. In houses that had been Anglican for 300 years. The hidden faith preserved in the fabric of the building. The shoe in the wall. The cat, frozen mid-leap. The prayer book in the Catholic darkness of the old wall. Buildings remember what their inhabitants needed most. Protection. Persistence. A place to put the things that couldn't be shown. The dark inside the walls is very much like the dark inside the mind. Full of things put there for safekeeping. Things that were important enough to hide. Important enough to keep. In the dark. Until it was safe to bring them out, or until someone found them. Centuries later. Still there. Fact 57. Medieval cesspits are among the most productive archaeological sites for organic material. This sounds unpleasant, and it is, but the anaerobic conditions of a sealed cesspit preserve organic matter with extraordinary completeness. Excavations of medieval cesspits in London, York, and other British cities have recovered seeds, textile fragments, leather shoes, wooden objects, cherry pits, grape seeds, and even the parasitic eggs of intestinal worms, giving archaeologists direct evidence of the diet and health conditions of medieval urban populations. One cesspit excavated in York in the 1970s, at a site called Coppergate, which became the foundation of the Jorvik Viking Center. produced a piece of human excrement so large and so well preserved that it was described by its discoverers as the most significant piece of Viking excrement ever found. It is approximately 20 centimeters long, from the 9th century AD. It has been analyzed for diet, for parasites, for the health of its producer. It is currently on display at the Jorvik Viking Center, where it is apparently one of the most popular exhibits. The Earth keeps everything, including this. Fact 58. The objects found in medieval well shafts reveal the household lives of people who left no written record. Wells, when they were abandoned, when a new source of water was found, or when the building above was demolished, were typically sealed by filling them with rubbish. The contents of a sealed medieval well shaft are, therefore, a snapshot of the material culture of the household at a specific moment. At sites across Britain, well shafts have yielded intact leather shoes, wooden bowls, intact ceramic vessels, animal bones from meals, textile fragments, and occasionally objects of striking intimacy. A child's toy, a small personal ornament, a knife with a carved handle. Things that were swept up in the final clearing of a house, thrown into the well, as the household was disbanded, preserved in the waterlogged darkness below, for 600 years. Fact 59. Beneath the Tower of London, archaeologists have found evidence of occupation stretching back to Roman times. Not just the medieval castle that everyone knows, though the castle's foundations are themselves extraordinary, constructed on the ruins of a Roman coastal fort. Below the foundations, Roman material, the detritus of the fort's occupation, the evidence of the soldiers who were stationed there 2,000 years ago, and within the medieval castle itself, in the spaces between and beneath the structures, evidence of execution, imprisonment, and the ordinary daily life of the garrison. The tower's wartime role as a place of detention left its mark underground. Evidence of cells, of bolts and floors, of the physical infrastructure of confinement. And during excavations in the 1990s, in a pit beneath the White Tower, the oldest part of the complex. Animal bones. Not from meals. From the tower's menagerie, the Royal Menagerie, the collection of exotic animals given to the English monarchs by foreign rulers, kept in the tower from the 13th century. A lion, an elephant, under the Tower of London, still there. Fact 60. The most unusual buried objects in England may be the witch bottles. Witch bottles are small ceramic or glass vessels, typically salt-glazed stoneware, found buried beneath the floors and hearths of English houses, primarily from the 17th and 18th centuries. They contain bent pins and nails, human hair, human urine, nail clippings, sometimes small pieces of fabric shaped into a human figure, stuck through with pins. They were protection against witchcraft. The idea was that the witch bottle, containing part of the intended victim, would attract and trap the curse sent against them, turning it back on the sender. They were buried at the threshold of the house, under the hearth, under the front doorstep, to intercept curses entering the building. Over 200 have been found in Britain. Some were discovered intact, still sealed, their contents preserved, including the urine, which has been tested. The urine DNA has, in some cases, been successfully extracted. The people who buried their witch bottles in the 17th century left, in those bottles, in the dark under their hearths, their own genetic material, still identifiable, still there. Fact 61. The buried landscapes beneath rice paddies in Southeast Asia contain some of the least studied archaeological deposits in the world. The wet conditions of paddy cultivation preserve organic materials, wood, bone, textile, that would not survive in drier environments. And the continuous cultivation of the same fields across centuries has created extraordinarily dense archaeological deposits. Sites in Vietnam, Thailand, Cambodia, and Myanmar contain the remains of early civilizations. Early Bronze Age settlements, Iron Age communities, the predecessors of historical kingdoms, whose material culture is only beginning to be systematically studied. The rice paddies of Southeast Asia are an archive of early human settlement in one of the most biodiverse and least understood regions of the ancient world. Farmed over every season for 2,000 years, with archaeology underneath every field. Fact 62. In 2019, construction workers in Cambridge, England, were digging the foundations for a new development when they found a ring. Not an old ring, a ring buried in the 13th century. A gold ring with a large uncut sapphire, engraved on the inside with a Latin inscription. The inscription has been translated as a reference to divine protection. The ring had been lost, or hidden, in a Cambridge field, in the 13th century, when Cambridge was a small market town, not yet a famous university city. The person who lost or hid it, a wealthy person clearly, in an age when sapphires were worth fortunes, never retrieved it. The ring lay in the ground for approximately 750 years, under fields, under whatever was built there before the development, under 7.5 centuries of seasons, until someone's spade found it. Still gold, still sapphire, still inscribed with its prayer for protection. The ring still praying, the witch bottle still defending, the prayer book still Catholic, the shoe still worn smooth, the cat still leaping. The things buildings and grounds keep are not just objects. They are the specific weight of specific human concerns, the specific things that specific people in specific moments felt urgently enough to act on, to hide, to seal in, to trust to the dark. You have things like that too. Things kept in the interior, in the dark corners of the mind where the important things stay. Not lost, just held, in the most reliable keeping place available. The deep quiet inside, where things stay exactly as they were, until you need them, or until you don't. Either way, they are there. You are there. Everything is there. In the dark, in the kept quiet. Sleep. Every sacred place has a floor, and beneath every floor, whether the builders intended it or not, there is depth. There is history. There is the residue of everything that happened before this place became sacred, and everything that was buried here when it did, and everything that the centuries of use and worship and the slow work of time have accumulated in the ground beneath the stone. Sacred places keep their secrets differently from ordinary places. Not more carefully. The earth is equally careful about everything it receives. But the secrets of sacred places carry a different weight. Because what was placed beneath a temple, or a cathedral, or a stone circle, was placed there by people who believed, with whatever the specific content of their belief, that the ground beneath a sacred space was a direct line to the divine. Not just the earth, the threshold, the place where the worlds met. Fact 63. Beneath Stonehenge, the famous stone circle on Salisbury Plain in Wiltshire, the ground has been far more extensively used than the visible monument suggests. Ground-penetrating radar and magnetometry surveys conducted in recent years as part of the Stonehenge Hidden Landscapes project have revealed a remarkable density of buried features in the landscape surrounding the stones. 17 previously unknown ritual monuments. Underground pits aligned with the solstice. Burial mounds that were not visible from the surface. And something else. Buried ditches running parallel to the avenue. The ceremonial approach to Stonehenge from the northeast, that appear to be the remnants of a natural feature in the chalk landscape that was already astronomically significant before the stones were erected. The stones were not built in an empty landscape. They were built in a landscape that was already full of meaning, already marked, already used, by people who came before the stone circle, who left their marks in the earth. Below the monument we can see. Fact 64. The great cathedrals of medieval Europe were built above the graves of their predecessors. Canterbury Cathedral, the mother church of the Church of England, was built on a site of continuous Christian worship since at least the 6th century AD. Beneath the Norman Cathedral, which was built after the Norman conquest of 1066, are the remains of the Anglo-Saxon cathedral that preceded it. Beneath the Anglo-Saxon cathedral, the remains of a Roman building, possibly a villa or a temple, whose foundations were reused in the earliest Christian structure on the site. Beneath the Roman building, evidence of Iron Age activity. Every time a cathedral was built, extended, or rebuilt, and Canterbury has been substantially rebuilt multiple times, the builders dug down into the history of what came before, and found it, and built on top of it anyway. Fact 65. In 2015, archaeologists excavating beneath Lincolnshire Cathedral found something that challenged the established chronology of the area. The cathedral, built in the 11th century, sits on a limestone ridge above the city of Lincoln. Beneath the cathedral's foundations, Roman buildings. Expected, but beneath the Roman buildings, a structure that predated the Roman conquest by several centuries. A prehistoric pit, containing deposits that suggested ritual activity. People gathering on this ridge, leaving deposits in the ground, before the Romans arrived, before the Saxons, before the Normans. The same ridge, the same elevation, the same view across the surrounding plain. Something about this specific place drew people repeatedly across thousands of years. Before anyone built anything, the sacred place was already sacred. The ridge that drew people before anyone built on it. The cathedral above the Roman building above the Iron Age. The Stonehenge landscape, already full of meaning before the stones were raised. Sacred places remember what made them sacred. In the ground, in the deposits, in the things placed there before anyone wrote down why. Some things are sacred because we decide they are, and some things are sacred because something in us recognizes them, before we can explain the recognition. The dark is a little like that. It calls something in you that precedes explanation. Rest in that pre-explanatory space. Fact 66. The Lyceum of Aristotle, the philosophical school in Athens where Aristotle taught from 335 to 323 BC, where he founded the Peripatetic School of Philosophy, where he and his students walked and debated and produced works that shaped Western thought for 2,000 years, was lost for the entirety of the medieval period. Its location was known to be somewhere in the eastern part of Athens. It was found in 1996, during construction work for the new Museum of Modern Art, beneath the foundations of an Ottoman-era building, beneath a 19th century park, under Athens, the school where Aristotle walked, the physical ground where some of the most important philosophical thinking in Western history occurred, was under a modern city, under the layers, under everything, found because someone was digging for something else. Fact 67. The buried objects beneath the medieval city of York tell the story of one of the most continuously occupied cities in Britain. York was founded by the Romans as Eboracum, a legionary fortress, in 71 AD. It became the Anglian city of Ea Forwick. The Vikings captured it in 866 AD and made it their capital, calling it Jorvik. After the Norman conquest, it became York. Each of these phases left its material record in the ground. The Coppergate excavations of 1976 to 1981, which led to the establishment of the Jorvik Viking Center, produced approximately 40,000 objects and 15,000 environmental samples from a single city block. Not an important location, not a royal palace or a cathedral, a regular city block, where ordinary people had lived their ordinary lives. For 900 years, the ground had kept all of it, the shoes, the textile fragments, the woodworking debris, the food waste, the parasites, the evidence of daily life so complete that archaeologists could reconstruct what a Viking Age York Street smelled like, which apparently was considerable. Fact 68. Beneath the Church of the Nativity in Bethlehem, built over the site traditionally identified as the birthplace of Jesus Christ, and the oldest continuously operating church in the world, excavations have found evidence of an even earlier structure. The current basilica dates to the 6th century AD, built by the Emperor Justinian over a 4th century basilica built by the Emperor Constantine. But beneath the Constantinian basilica, remains of an earlier structure of uncertain date and function. And beneath that, a natural cave in the limestone bedrock, which may have been the specific site of the nativity tradition, a cave where animals were kept and where, according to the tradition, the events described in the Gospels occurred. Whether the specific cave is the specific site is not provable. Whether the cave is the origin of the tradition, the natural feature around which the church was eventually built, is much more plausible. The church, built over the church, built over the cave, built over the ground. Fact 69. The Templo Mayor, the great double pyramid at the heart of Tenochtitlan, the Aztec capital, was buried under Mexico City, as we have noted. But what was buried inside the Templo Mayor is equally remarkable. Excavations since 1978 have found over 200 individual offerings caches within the pyramid's construction. Deposits placed in the ground as the pyramid was built and extended, each one a specific set of objects offered to the gods. Corals from the Gulf of Mexico, crocodile skulls, jaguar bones, obsidian knives, turquoise masks, the bones of sacrificed humans, and from the Atlantic coast, the Pacific coast, the highland forests, and the Gulf lowlands, objects that map the extent of Aztec trade and tribute. The pyramid was not just a temple, it was an accumulator, a vessel built to concentrate the material wealth of an empire in the ground beneath the divine. Each extension added another layer of offerings, another deposit, another gift to the earth, to the gods that lived below. Fact 70. Children bury things. This is not ancient and not archaeological. It is simply true. Children across all cultures and all historical periods have buried objects. In gardens, in school grounds, in parks, in fields. Toys, drawings, notes, small collections of things that mattered for reasons that only made sense at the age they were buried. The impulse is not learned. It is spontaneous. Something about the act of putting something in the ground, sealing it there, marking the spot, knowing it is there, satisfies something in a child's understanding of the world. A private possession, a hidden place, a secret known only to the one who buried it. And sometimes, decades later, when the garden is dug over for replanting, or when a developer breaks new ground, or when an elderly person returns to where they grew up and walks the old boundaries, those buried things are found. A small tin box, a plastic figure, a note, legible or not, that says, "This was important once. This was mine. I was here." Fact 71. The soil beneath Angkor Wat, the vast 12th century temple complex in Cambodia, the largest religious monument ever built, is one of the least studied major archaeological deposits in Asia. The scale of Angkor Wat and the broader Angkor complex dwarfs almost any archaeological site in the world. The temple itself covers approximately 400 hectares. The surrounding city of Angkor, at its 12th century height, covered approximately 1,000 square kilometers and may have been the largest pre-industrial city in the world. Most of the city that surrounded the temples has never been excavated. It is under the forests and the rice paddies and the modern settlements of the Siem Reap region. Under trees, under fields, under the present. LiDAR surveys have begun to reveal its outline. The canals, the roads, the residential areas, the subsidiary temples of a city of perhaps 1 million people. 1 million people. Under the Cambodian jungle. Under the oldest temple complex I can name. Still mostly unknown. Still mostly in the ground. Anchors million people under the jungle. The tin box with the plastic figure. The Templo Mayor, accumulating its gifts. Aristotle School, found in 1996. The cave under the church, the sacred place. Always deeper than it looks. Always older than what is visible. There is something very comforting about that. The depth, the layers, the fact that what we can see is always the surface of something much larger. You are like that too. What is visible tonight is just the surface, the outer layer, the room, the bed, the dark. Below that, depth, layers, the quiet, immense interior, which the night is already exploring. On your behalf. Let it go down into the deep quiet. Sleep. There are things buried underground right now that everyone knows about. Not lost things. Not forgotten things. Not the accidental or the ancient. Things that were buried deliberately recently by people who are still alive or whose descendants are still alive and who know exactly where they are. The location is documented. The contents are known. And they remain in the ground anyway. Because retrieving them would be too expensive. Too dangerous. Too politically complicated. Because the technology to extract them without destroying them does not yet exist. Because the people whose permission would be required have not given it. Because some things, even when you know exactly where they are, remain stubbornly, specifically, deliberately underground. The known buried thing, which is, in its own way, one of the most interesting categories of all. Fact 72. The SS Gersapa was a British merchant steamship sunk by a German U-boat in 1941, approximately 300 miles off the coast of Ireland. It went to the bottom of the Atlantic at a depth of approximately 4,700 meters. Its cargo, 240 tons of silver. At the time of its sinking, this was one of the most valuable cargoes lost in the Atlantic. In 2012, an American salvage company called Odyssey Marine Exploration located the wreck and began recovering the silver. They recovered approximately 61 tons. The remaining 179 tons of silver is still down there, at 4,700 meters. In the Atlantic, the largest unrecovered silver cargo in history, still at the bottom of the sea. Fact 73. The San Jose Galleon is considered the holy grail of maritime treasure hunting. A Spanish treasure ship, it was sunk by the British Royal Navy in 1708 during the War of the Spanish Succession, approximately 50 kilometers off the coast of Cartagena, Colombia. Its cargo, approximately 220 tons of gold, silver, and emeralds from the Spanish colonies in South America. At current market values, the cargo is estimated to be worth approximately $17 billion. The wreck was discovered in 2015 by a joint Colombian government and scientific team. Its location has been disclosed to no one. A legal dispute between the Colombian government, the Spanish government, and the descendants of the indigenous people whose labor produced the treasure has been ongoing since the discovery. The ship is on the seafloor. The cargo is in the ship. The legal ownership is undetermined. And so the most valuable shipwreck ever found stays where it is, at the bottom of the Caribbean, while lawyers argue above it. Fact 74. The Amber Room was one of the great art treasures of the world. Constructed in the early 18th century for the Prussian royal family, it was a room-sized installation of amber panels backed with gold leaf and mirrors, covering approximately 55 square meters of wall. In 1941, German forces dismantled it and transported it to Königsberg Castle in what is now Kaliningrad, Russia. In 1945, as the Soviet army advanced, the Amber Room disappeared. It has not been seen since. The most popular theory is that it was packed into crates and buried. Possibly in a mine, possibly in a bunker, possibly beneath Kaliningrad Castle itself, which was bombed and largely destroyed in 1944 and 1945. Many attempts have been made to find it. None have succeeded. The Amber Room may be underground somewhere in the former East Prussia. It may have been destroyed in the bombing. It may have been smuggled elsewhere. It may be in someone's basement. After 80 years, it has not been found. The silver at 4,700 meters. The $17 billion on the Caribbean floor. The Amber Room, somewhere in the ruins of Königsberg. The known unknowns. The located unlocked. The things we could name but cannot reach. There is something in that category that is very useful. The things you know are there, that you can't get to right now. That will be there when the time comes, when the conditions are right, when the technology exists, when the lawyers are done. They are there. They will be there. Rest in that certainty. Fact 75. The buried hoard that detectorists dream of finding in Britain is the Flixborough hoard. Not because it is particularly spectacular, though it is significant, but because of a reference in an inventory from the dissolution of a monastery in 16th century Lincolnshire, which describes a great chest of gold and silver hidden by the monkeys in time of trouble, that was said to be buried somewhere on the monastery grounds. The monastery no longer exists. The grounds have been built over, farmed, and modified beyond recognition. The chest, if it existed, has never been found. But the reference survives. In an inventory, in the British Library, a piece of paper from 500 years ago, describing something buried a further 300 years before that. That has not been found yet. Fact 76. The permafrost of Siberia is expected to yield increasingly significant finds as global temperatures rise and the frozen ground thaws. Scientists monitoring sites where permafrost is actively melting have found preserved plant material from a last ice age. Seeds, in some cases, that can still germinate. Flowers that bloomed 30,000 years ago have been reconstructed and grown from preserved tissue. More mammoths will emerge. More wolves like Zur. And potentially, given what we know about the human populations of Siberia during the Ice Age, human remains of extraordinary preservation. Individuals who may have lived 20, 30, 40,000 years ago, with their skin intact, their clothing recoverable, their last meal identifiable. The permafrost is an archive that is being opened, not by archaeologists, but by the climate. Not on any schedule we control, not with any instruments we are directing, just thawing, giving back what the cold has been keeping, whether we are ready or not. Fact 77. Beneath the Thames estuary, the wide mouth of the Thames as it broadens toward the North Sea, lie the wrecks of approximately 20,000 ships. 20,000. Accumulated over several thousand years of one of the world's busiest waterways. Most of them are unremarkable, the wrecks of working vessels, their cargoes mundane, their stories ordinary. But among them are extraordinary anomalies. The SS Richard Montgomery, an American Liberty ship that sank in 1944 with approximately 1,400 tons of munitions still aboard. Unexploded bombs and shells and fuses, resting in shallow water off the coast of Sheppey, still considered too dangerous to remove after 80 years. A large explosion of the SS Richard Montgomery's cargo would be one of the largest non-nuclear explosions in British history. It is still there, in the Thames estuary, marked by warning buoys, surrounded by an exclusion zone, 15 meters below the surface, a few miles from the shore. Fact 78. The Crossrail project in London, The construction of the Elizabeth Line, the new East-West Underground Railway, was the largest archaeological investigation in British history. Over 10,000 finds were recovered during construction, including a mass burial from the Great Plague of 1665, skeletons of Londoners who died in the epidemic, buried in a plague pit beneath what is now Liverpool Street Station, a Roman road, a Roman cemetery, a medieval guild hall, Bronze Age material, all encountered during the construction of a railway line. The railway is now open. The passengers ride through it daily. Above the dead. Fact 79. The Japanese city of Nara, the ancient capital of Japan, has an unusual relationship with archaeological discovery. Nara is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Its ancient temples and palaces are protected. Any construction in the historic area requires archaeological survey, but the surveys routinely find material of such significance that construction is frequently delayed, sometimes for years, while the finds are properly excavated and recorded. The cumulative effect of decades of these discoveries has been the reconstruction, in extraordinary detail, of the layout of the ancient Nara Palace complex and the city that surrounded it. Not from above-ground remains. Those are largely gone. From the buried foundations, the post holes, the drainage channels, the artifact deposits. The Nara that existed 1,300 years ago is being reconstructed from the ground up, literally. Fact 80. The most productive period in the history of archaeological discovery is not the past. It is the present. The combination of LiDAR surveys, ground-penetrating radar, satellite imagery, DNA analysis, isotope analysis, and the increasingly sophisticated analysis of ancient environmental data has transformed what archaeology can find and what it can understand about what it finds. More major discoveries have been made in the last 20 years than in the entire previous history of the discipline. And the rate is accelerating. Every year the tools get better. The surveys get more comprehensive. The databases get larger. Every year, more of what the Earth has been keeping is identified, recovered, understood. The golden age of discovery is not behind us. It is now. And the things being found right now, the inscriptions being read, the tombs being opened, the buried cities being mapped from the air, will reshape our understanding of history in ways that the next generation will take for granted. The Earth has been patient. For a very long time. The Earth is still patient. But it is giving things up. Steadily. On its own schedule. At its own pace. As it always has. The Amber Room, somewhere under what was Königsberg. 20,000 ships under the Thames estuary. The thawing permafrost, giving up its Ice Age occupants. Nara, being rebuilt from its underground foundations. And the golden age of discovery, happening right now. While you sleep. While you are here in the dark entirely still. Somewhere a drone is flying over a jungle. Somewhere a ground-penetrating radar is scanning a field. Somewhere an archaeologist is at a depth not reached before. The Earth is still giving, still keeping, still patient. And the night, which is your version of the patient dark, is holding you the same way, with the same care, while the discovering goes on. Without you, you don't have to do anything tonight. The Earth has everything covered. Sleep. We are near the end, near the last of the 100 buried things. And somewhere in the journey from the red quartzite hand axe of Atapuerca, placed with the dead 350,000 years ago, to the nuclear waste being sealed under Finnish granite right now, something has become clear. Not a conclusion, not an answer, something quieter than that, a recognition that the Earth has been receiving things since before there were people to put them there, and it will be receiving things long after. And in all the time in between, in all of human history, In all the fear and the ceremony and the accident and the intention and the love and the loss that has resulted in things going underground, the earth has made no distinction. It has kept everything with complete impartiality, with complete reliability, with the patience of something that does not experience time the way we do. That last part is the one to rest in tonight. The patience of the thing that holds. Fact 81. Objects buried for love are among the most moving in the archaeological record. Not the love of gods or kings. Personal love. The love of a parent for a child, a person for a partner, a friend for a friend. In the burial mounds of Bronze Age Britain, archaeologists have found small personal objects placed with such care. A child's toy near a child, a small tool near a craftsperson, a particular kind of flower near a woman, that the individual's personality, their role, their relationships, seem briefly recoverable across 3,000 years. One burial in particular, a woman found in a Bronze Age mound in Wiltshire, buried with a rich assemblage of objects, contained, alongside the gold and amber, a small cup made of shale. The cup showed signs of heavy use and repair. It had been broken and mended multiple times, with careful drilling and bronze staples, over a long period. Someone had valued this cup enough to repair it. Again, and finally buried it with her. Because it was hers. Because it was worth keeping. Fact 82. The Roman practice of depictions, curse tablets, involved writing a curse or a wish on a thin sheet of lead, rolling or folding it, and throwing it into a sacred spring or burying it in the ground near a temple. Thousands have been found. At the site of the sacred spring at Bath, the sanctuary of the goddess Sulis Minerva, over 130 lead tablets have been recovered, thrown into the spring between the 2nd and 4th centuries AD. Their contents are intimate, angry, specific. Whoever has stolen my gloves, whether man or woman, whether slave or free, let him not sleep or eat until he returns them to the temple. A person in Roman Bath, missing their gloves, writing a curse on lead, throwing it into a spring, for a goddess to sort out. The gloves were presumably never returned. The curse tablet is in the Museum of Bath. Fact 83. Some buried objects were placed there as punishment. In Norse tradition, individuals who were considered to have violated the community's norms, criminals, traitors, the disgraced, were sometimes buried face down rather than face up. The inversion was deliberate, a statement made in the act of burial that this person was oriented away from the world of the living, away from the sun, away from whatever came after. A posture of disgrace, made permanent, in stone. Archaeologists who find these inverted burials, and they exist across many cultures and periods, not only in Scandinavia, are looking at the final act of a social judgment. Someone, a community, decided, and the earth received it, without opinion, just as it receives everything. Fact 84. The most recent major discovery under a British city happened during the excavation of a car park in Leicester. In 2012, archaeologists from the University of Leicester began excavating a car park owned by the City Council in central Leicester. They were looking for the medieval Greyfriars Friary, where historical records suggested Richard III had been buried following his death at the Battle of Bosworth in 1485. On the second day of the excavation, they found a skeleton. It had severe scoliosis of the spine. It had a battle wound to the skull. It was in the right location. DNA testing, conducted by comparing the skeleton's mitochondrial DNA to living descendants through the female line, confirmed the identification. The skeleton was Richard III, under a car park, in Leicester, for 527 years. The last Plantagenet king of England, under a car park. Fact 85. The terracotta army we mentioned early in our journey has been giving up more secrets. Since the initial excavations of the three main pits, archaeologists have found a fourth pit. It was empty. The fourth pit was clearly intended to contain soldiers. Its construction matches the other three exactly. But it was never filled. Whether the workers ran out of time, whether Qin Shi Huang died before it was completed, whether there was some other reason it was left empty, is not known. The construction was begun. The pit was dug. The soldiers were never placed inside. An empty pit, built to hold an army, next to three pits that were filled, in the dark under the hill, in the context of the most elaborate burial in Chinese history, an absence that has lasted 2,000 years. Fact 86. The Mildenhall treasure is one of the most extraordinary collections of late Roman silverware ever found. In 1942, a Suffolk farmer named Gordon Butcher was plowing a field when his plow struck something hard. He and his colleague Sidney Ford dug up 34 pieces of silver, plates, dishes, spoons, and bowls of extraordinary quality, decorated with mythological scenes, dating to the 4th century AD. The largest piece, the Great Dish, is 60 centimeters across and weighs over 8 kilograms. It is considered one of the finest pieces of Roman silverware in existence. Ford told no one about the find for 3 years. He kept it at his house, in wartime Suffolk, for 3 years. He eventually reported it in 1946. The treasure is now in the British Museum. Gordon Butcher received nothing for his discovery under the laws of the time. The field where it was found is back to being a field. Fact 87. The Querdale hoard, found on the south bank of the River Ribble near Preston in 1840, is the largest Viking silver hoard ever found outside Russia. Over 8,000 items, silver coins, silver ingots, hack silver, and ornaments, buried in a lead chest around 905 AD, by Viking leaders retreating from Dublin, as the English recaptured territories held by the Danes. In a moment of military reversal, someone buried 8,000 pieces of silver in a lead chest on the bank of a Lancashire river, and never came back. The hoard was found by workmen repairing the riverbank 35 years later. Most of it is now in the British Museum. A few pieces were kept by the workmen who found it. The lead chest is gone. The silver is behind glass. And the riverbank in Lancashire looks just like a riverbank. Fact 88. Buried under the desert of the Taklamakan in western China are the ruins of ancient cities that were once stops on the Silk Road. The Taklamakan Desert, one of the driest places on Earth, its name meaning approximately, "You go in but you don't come out," expanded over the centuries, swallowing the oasis cities that depended on the rivers flowing from the surrounding mountains. Naya, Dandan Willik, Miran, Andhra, cities that appear in the Silk Road travelers' accounts of 2,000 years ago. Thriving markets, Buddhist monasteries, towns with streets and houses and all the apparatus of settled life, buried under the advancing sand. The preservation conditions are extraordinary. Wooden furniture, painted and intact. Silk textiles, still colored. Documents in multiple languages: Chinese, Khotanese, Sanskrit, Brahmi, Gandhari, recording the daily business of a cosmopolitan Silk Road town. Buried by the sand. That is still there. That keeps giving up pieces of these cities as the desert shifts. Fact 89. The most extraordinary thing ever found buried in a field in Britain may be the Ringlemere Cup. In 2001, a metal detectorist named Cliff Bradshaw found a small gold cup in a field near Sandwich in Kent. The cup is beaker culture, dating to approximately 1700 to 1500 BC. It is made of hammered gold. It is corrugated, a design that allows it to flex slightly without fracturing. It is strikingly, almost uncannily similar to the Rilliton cup, a nearly identical gold cup found in Cornwall in 1837. and to gold cups found in Germany and Switzerland and Denmark. The same design, the same technique, the same corrugated form, spread across the width of Bronze Age Europe. What this means, whether these cups represent a shared elite culture, a specific craft tradition, a religious significance attached to this particular form, is not established. What is clear is that someone in Kent, in approximately 1600 BC, owned a small corrugated gold cup of a type found across Europe, and buried it in a field. And it was found by a man with a metal detector. 3,600 years later, and it is now in the British Museum. And the field in Kent is a field in Kent. Fact 90. Beneath a construction site in Istanbul, ancient Constantinople, ancient Byzantium, one of the world's most layered cities, excavations for a new railway tunnel revealed in the mid-2000s what became known as the Marmari excavations. They found a Byzantine harbor, intact, with 37 ships still in it. The Byzantine period harbor of Constantinople, a harbor that appears in historical records but whose location was not precisely known, had been sealed under the accumulated deposits of 1,000 years of urban growth. The ships, preserved in the waterlogged soil, ranged from small trading vessels to a large warship. The excavation took 11 years. The railway station built above it is now one of the most archaeologically significant buildings in the world. The passengers at Yenikapi station wait for their trains above 37 Byzantine ships, in the dark under the station, still in the harbor. Fact 91. The oldest buried object discovered so far may not be from Earth. In 1969, a meteorite fell on the village of Murchison in Victoria, Australia. Analysis of the Murchison meteorite has revealed that it contains organic compounds, amino acids, sugars, and, more remarkably, microscopic grains of silicon carbide and diamond that formed inside dying stars. Stars that no longer exist. Stars that died before our sun was born. The oldest of these pre-solar grains has been dated to approximately 7 billion years old. 7 billion years. The universe is approximately 13.8 billion years old. These grains formed when the universe was approximately 6 billion years old. They have been traveling through space since then. They fell on Murchison in 1969. They are now, in a sense, buried in laboratories, in glass cases. The oldest objects in the human possession. Older than the Earth. Older than the solar system. Still here. Still grains. Still themselves. After 7 billion years. Fact 92. In 2022, workers excavating the foundations of a new building in London's Moorgate district found a section of the original Roman city wall. Not the famous medieval wall, the Roman wall beneath it, from the 2nd century AD. This was not unexpected. London's Roman wall is mapped, its course known. But this particular section was in extraordinary condition, standing to a height of over 4 meters, with the original Roman stonework intact, visible below the medieval repair work laid on top centuries later. The builders adapted their plans to preserve the wall in place. It is now in the basement of the new building. Preserved. In a glass enclosure. In the basement of an office block. In Moorgate. The Roman wall. In someone's basement. Because of course it is. Fact 93. The practice of burying objects with the dead continues in the present day. In many cultures around the world, the burial of personal objects with the deceased is still standard practice. Meaningful objects, beloved objects, things that were theirs and that should go with them. And in some cultures, the practice has adapted to modern materials. In parts of China, paper models of smartphones, laptops, and credit cards are burned at funerals. Sent, through fire, to the world of the dead, to equip the deceased with what they might need in a contemporary afterlife. Paper cars. Paper houses. paper designer handbags, burned, their ash settling into the ground. A completely modern continuation of the practice that began with Excalibur, the red quartzite hand axe, placed in a pit in Spain 350,000 years ago. The impulse, unbroken, still sending things forward, still trusting the dark. Fact 94. The earth under your own home has a history. Whatever is there now, the concrete, the clay, the subsoil, the bedrock, was something else before. In the right locations, the ground beneath modern houses contains, in its layers, the evidence of everything that happened on that specific piece of land. A Roman coin, pushed down by generations of digging. A medieval potsherd, turned over by a Victorian vegetable patch. An 18th century clay pipe stem, dropped in a garden. A Victorian medicine bottle, thrown in a privy. A 20th century halfpenny, lost between the floorboards. Every piece of land has a history that preceded its current occupants. By hundreds or thousands or hundreds of thousands of years. The ground beneath you right now has a history. You are the most recent chapter. Just as temporary as the chapters before you. Just as real. Just as present. Fact 95. The largest archaeological excavation currently underway in the world is in Saudi Arabia. The ancient city of Al-Ula, a UNESCO-protected site of extraordinary cultural significance in the northwestern Arabian Peninsula, contains layers of human occupation stretching back thousands of years. The Hijra site alone, ancient Nabatean city cut into the rose-red sandstone cliffs, contains over 111 monumental rock-cut tombs, most of which have never been fully studied. Excavations began in earnest only in the 2010s. What is being found, in the tombs in the ancient city in the surrounding landscape, is reshaping our understanding of the ancient Arabian world. The Arabian Peninsula, for most of Western archaeological history, was assumed to be a relative blank. It was not a blank. It was simply unasked. The questions are being asked now, and the ground is answering. Fact 96. Beneath the floor of the Smithsonian National Museum of Natural History in Washington, D.C., in the vaults below the public galleries, are approximately 145 million specimens and artifacts, not on display. In storage, 145 million items. Fossils, minerals, anthropological objects, biological specimens, historical artifacts, kept in controlled conditions in the building's underground storage. 99% of the Smithsonian's collection is not visible to the public. It is below, in the dark, awaiting the research question it was collected to answer. Some of those items have been in storage since the 19th century. Some may never be the subject of specific research, but they are there, kept, on the chance that someone sometime will need exactly them. Fact 97. The thing buried underground that will last the longest is not nuclear waste. It is not the granite of Onkolo. It is not the polymer horizon of our plastics. It is the chemical signature of the oxygen in the atmosphere. Cyanobacteria, the first photosynthetic organisms, began producing oxygen approximately 2.7 billion years ago. Before that, Earth's atmosphere contained almost no free oxygen. The Great Oxidation Event, the accumulation of oxygen in the atmosphere as a result of cyanobacterial photosynthesis, changed the chemistry of the ocean and the land permanently. The banded iron formations, layers of iron oxide deposited in the oceans as the oxygen first appeared and began reacting with dissolved iron, are buried in rock strata across the world. Geological markers of the first breath, still down there, in the rock, the most ancient buried record of life on Earth, 2.7 billion years old, still telling the story of the day the Earth first breathed. Fact 98. Somewhere under the ground right now, Something extraordinary is waiting to be found. Not hypothetically, not as a romantic notion. Statistically, given the density of unexcavated sites, the extent of unexplored terrain, the pace of current discovery, and the improving sensitivity of the tools being used to find buried things, somewhere in the ground right now there is something that will, when found, change what we know about history, about prehistory, about the range of human capability, about the age and the complexity of human civilization. We do not know what it is. We do not know where it is. But the pattern of discovery over the past century, the pattern of the earth giving up its secrets steadily, one find at a time, each one revising something, makes this as close to certain as anything in archaeology. There is something. It is there. In the dark. Patient. Fact 99. The last buried thing we have visited before the very last is the one that is most likely to be found tomorrow. It is in a field somewhere in Britain. A field that looks like any other field, that has been plowed and planted and harvested for decades, for centuries, for however long the land has been farmed. And in it, at a depth of perhaps 30 centimeters, is a small metal object. A coin, or a brooch, or a buckle, or something less easily categorized. From some period between the Roman occupation and last Tuesday. It is there because someone dropped it, or hid it, or lost it, in a moment that was probably entirely ordinary. And it has been there ever since. In the dark. In the cold. In the patient company of the soil. Tomorrow morning, someone will walk a field with a metal detector. And the machine will signal. And they will dig. And find it. And hold it up to the light. And it will be the first time it has seen the sky in however long it has been down there. Fact 100. The last buried thing is not in a museum. It is not in a field. It is not under a cathedral or in a glacier or in the foundations of a building or at the bottom of the sea. The last buried thing is the day that has just ended. The day that is behind you now. Not lost, buried. In the most reliable archive there is. In the sediment of memory, in the layers of experience that accumulate through a life, in the deep unconscious processing that happens in the hours you are about to enter. The day goes underground in sleep. And in the morning, transformed, processed, integrated, settled into its place in the longer record, it comes back up. Changed but kept. As everything the earth keeps is changed but kept. The ancient Romans had a word for it. Inhumatio. The act of placing in the earth. Of giving to the ground. And the ground always gives back. In its own time. In its own form. The seed buried in autumn is not the same as the plant that rises in spring. But the seed was the plant. And the plant was the seed. And the ground that held both. Held both. The day is in the ground. The field in Britain is in the dark. The object is waiting. The ship is on the seafloor. The mummy is in the permafrost. The hand axe is in the pit in Spain. The scroll is in its jar. The witch bottle is under the hearth. The birthday invitation is in the Roman rubbish. Richard III is in the British Museum now, but for 500 years he was in a car park. The amber room is somewhere. The banded iron formations are 2.7 billion years old. And the crypt in Atlanta won't be opened until 8113 AD. All of it, kept in the dark, with complete reliability, with complete patience, with the impartiality of the earth, which does not distinguish between what was buried with ceremony and what was dropped, which does not know or care, only keeps, the way the night keeps you, right now, in the dark, in the still, in the good old patient reliable dark. Everything in the ground is fine, everything buried is kept, and you are the most important buried thing of all. The day, going down, into the sleep, into the keeping, into the dark that transforms, and gives back, in the morning, everything you need. Sleep,